Hi there. So I know the camera angle is a little bit strange for this lesson, but it's more important that you see what's happening in the pan than it is that you see me. Today we're going to talk about sautéing. So sautéing in French literally means to flip. So you'll notice that our pan has edges that go up, and that's so that we can actually flip our ingredients in this pan instead of a flat pan. We want the sides to curve so that it's really easy to flip and move our ingredients around. Sautéing, unlike sweating, is done at a high temperature, and it's quick, faster, less amount of time. And when we saute, we want to get color on something. So say we want to saute some zucchini, we're going to want some brown, nice color on it. When we saute onions, same thing. Eggplant, mushrooms, we're going to want a nice golden brown on them. So the high heat is important. It's super important, just like with sweating, that our ingredients are of uniform dice. So I've diced up an onion back here. I made sure that it was a super uniform chop so that the onion is going to cook evenly. When we are sautéing, it's important that we get the pan at a high temperature, and we don't want it too hot so that our ingredients burn, but we want it hot enough that we're gonna get that nice brown color on them and that they're going to cook quickly. Because of this, we're not going to use olive oil. Today, we are using a grapeseed oil, which has a high smoke point. It means that we can cook at a higher temperature with it without worried about it burning or changing its chemical compound. I've got my mise en place all ready to go. For the test to see if the pan is the right temperature, we're going to use either an 1/8 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a teaspoon. I have my water ready to go. I've got grapeseed oil, enough to coat the pan, plus about 1 teaspoon. I've got my ingredient I want to saute, my salt and my pepper. So let's go ahead and do this water test. So I'm going to turn on my stove here. I'm gonna put it on at a pretty high flame. It's my biggest burner. This is a big pan. So one thing to consider when you are going to saute is that you want a pan where your ingredients can be in one pretty much flat layer. You don't want things stacked on top of each other because then they won't be touching the heat source. You also want things that are even or chopped square, not round, so that they'll brown and they'll hit all parts of the pan. So that's important too. I love this pan. It's Cuisinart and it's for sale on my website. Unlike sweating, we do have to preheat the pan, so that's why this test is so important. What we're gonna do here is put just a little drop of water in here. You can see that not much is happening yet. We leave it for a little bit, it is gonna bubble and evaporate, so the pan is getting hotter. We're just gonna wipe that off. And what we're looking for is that when we drop this water into this pan, it's gonna form one single ball, and it's gonna just go around in the pan. So we're gonna get there, and then we're just gonna keep testing until we do. Okay, we're not there yet. We put some water and it's bubbling. You can see it's steaming off. It needs to get hotter. We're just gonna wait a few seconds, and we're gonna do it again. It's good to test different areas of your pan to make sure that you're getting it evenly heated through, since you are using the whole pan to cook, obviously. So we weren't there yet. I'm gonna wait a few seconds, we're gonna try again. All right, it's starting to get hotter because now what's happening is that when we put the water in, it's steaming up and forming lots of tiny little balls. Hopefully you could see them, and they were bouncing off on the side. And it's evaporating really quickly. You can see just tons of little balls of water. So we're getting closer. I know that this takes a little bit of time, but it really does help in the cooking process. If this is at the wrong temperature, we're gonna end up with soggy ingredients. You can see there's 2 balls here, one big one and a bunch of little, that second one kind of broke into a bunch of other little ones. So we're almost there. We're gonna wait a few more seconds, let it keep heating, and I think we're almost gonna be there. Okay, we need a few more seconds here, but we are getting there. A little patience goes a long way in getting these things right. It really makes a difference in being kind of like a novice chef to elevating your game to a more experienced and refined home cook. That's what we want. Do you see this ball? You can see it. I can see it in the screen. It's bouncing around. There's no other little balls. There's like one or two tiny ones, but that's what we wanted right there. This one big mercury ball. So now our pan is at the right temperature. I hope you can see it. That's so exciting. I'm gonna wipe it up. Now I'm gonna pour my grapeseed oil in this pan. Okay. I'm gonna make sure that it coats the whole pan. I'm going to add my onion to this. And you hear that? That's what we want. That sizzle, you hear that sizzle? We didn't have that when we were sweating. Sautéing, you want that sizzle. You want to be able to see all of this bubbling up. I'm already getting some color and browning. Hopefully you can see it. And we're just gonna toss this around. Now, if you start to get too much color and it's getting too dark too fast, go ahead and turn your temperature down a little bit, because just because we hit the right temperature doesn't mean that our pan wasn't gonna keep getting hot. So I did turn it down just a touch. And I could see that this onion was getting pretty brown pretty quickly, which is great, but I also want to give it a chance to cook all the way through. So I want it to cook quickly, but I don't want it to burn, okay? Now you can see, that traditionally we're tossing. It's going up on the side. You can also just stir it. I have my bamboo. I love bamboo stirrers here. They're great. So I'm just gonna let this keep cooking until it gets to the color that I want, okay? Now let's talk about seasoning and sautéing. So traditionally, a good rule of thumb with seasoning with sautéing is that we want to add our salt. I've got my trusty Maldon here. We want to add this at the end, okay? So any sort of seasoning, our salt, our pepper, it's going to happen at the end. So this isn't, completely cooked through yet, but we're just doing it for the sake of time, and I'm gonna turn this off actually. So we wanna season at the end, and that's because that salt is going to keep drawing water out of our ingredient, okay? With starchier vegetables, definitely, you want to always season at the end. Say a potato, sweet potato, white potato. You want to season at the end. Otherwise, the salt's gonna pull out too much moisture, and we're not gonna be able to brown our ingredient. The only time that we want to season before, in the beginning, is going to be with mushrooms. So mushrooms are dry, they have a lot of moisture, but they're dry when you slice them, right? So we want to use the salt to pull out some of that moisture, and that's going to help it actually cook. So most all ingredients season at the end when sautéing, except for mushrooms season in the beginning. A little kind of fun fact, if we had kept letting this, or fun trick, if we kept letting this sauté, we'd get some brown bits and pieces at the bottom here. And what we could do is we could deglaze this pan. I'm gonna turn it back on, which means that we would take either some water, some lemon, some soy sauce, some sort of liquid, and we would pour a little bit of it into the pan. And then this is called deglazing, what I'm doing right now. So then we would get all of this brown yumminess. Now see, we didn't even cook this for very long, but you can see that the liquid is turning a lovely caramel color just from the little bit of brownness that we did have already in the pot. And that's gonna add a lot of flavor to our cooking. It also makes cleaning your pot easier at the end. So we want to deglaze when we're sautéing. Get all of that yummy, rich color into your ingredient because it adds a lot of flavor. So, there we go. That's sautéing 101.